What would happen if Valencina and Ren fought each other in a 1v1? Who would win? I'm here to answer that question today. In this video, I won't only go by who would hypothetically win, but how a fight between the two of them will go. Some context before going into our respective stats and abilities. Ren and Valentina are both combatants of semi-equal level, so the fight isn't one-sided. They both have a chance of winning the battle. It all depends on how the battle plays out. I will also be translating how their abilities would work in a real-time battle, so some assumptions will be made as to how their abilities behave. Also, certain passive effects that grant the enemy debuffs will be ignored, nerfed, or reinterpreted in the context of the fight, such as game target and the prescripts target. Certain status effects will be reinterpreted to fit in with a real-time battle, such as Tremor, which would be interpreted as dealing damage that could help disrupt the fooling of an opponent, and stagger them. Winning a clash would also be taken as a sort of mini stagger, where the loser is put in an unfavorable position where they can't really fight back. Unbreakable coins will be interpreted as the loser being able to maintain some ground despite losing and pulling off their move through though at a weakened state. Let's go over what common stats and lore they both share. They're both members of the House of Spiders, having raised Yoshihide/Ryoshu as part of Project Spider-Pyre. They're both part of a syndicate, having had a strong position in their respective syndicate. They're both able to use Mang and Shin. They are of similar strength to a color fixer or even stronger, depends on the color. Cali's still the GOAT. With that out of the way, let's get on to the individuals. Valencina is or was a member of the Tom, and for 3 days was the Sora couple, until she was kicked out and shamed into House of Spiders. She uses a Blade of the Tomb alongside a Rapier, at the same time as she fights, using the Parlermitan style. She also uses her Eye of Precognition / the Eye of Odin to predict her opponent's attacks. Having fought in the Smoke War, she became a war hero, having killed at least one of the 4 great weapons from the old G-Corps. Valencina has a base level of 77 with no passives which lower her stats. Based off of the story of Tom Rodion, we can infer that Valencina can or was able to move at speeds faster than what the eye can perceive, granting her the edge of speed against Rien. Her attacks will also burn and disrupt her opponent's overall positioning. She is also resistant to most status effects such as sinking. A trait of her which will have zero effect in a fight is her big damage buff against shields. She does also have access to Shin, which makes it so that she can become a tad more resilient after taking damage for a bit. While in the game she only pulls it out after Lucius defeated, I doubt she only learned how based on that experience alone, so I am left to believe that she has another way to master her Shin. As for her abilities, she can use bullets in some of her attacks to increase her damage. Using bullets also helps her increase her focus, gaining poise, which allows her to focus on dealing critical hits to her opponent and buffing her attacks. She has access to a very strong move of hers called Disposal, which she can use to easily finish off any heavily damaged opponents. During this move, she controls the battlefield, leaving her opponents at a low speed where she shoots out the tip of her rapier into a long chain, extending it in a flash, causing her target to bust into flames and lose their footing. This grants her a quick moment of rest speed to reload her bullets. Her major ability comes in the form of her Eye of Precognition, which makes her a formidable foe. This eye allows her to see the most possible thing to happen in the next second, letting her easily evade any attacks thrown at her. However, this relic isn't all powerful, as it can overheat and leave Valencina in an unfavorable position. Based on the Tom Nurse Father's Rodent subtype story, we see that the eye calculates every single possible event that can happen and narrows it down to the most likely one. However, calculating so many different possibilities quickly overheats the eye, so cutting down the amount of things it must calculate helps to lower the strain in the eye. Narrowing down things such as where the enemy is likely to attack helps the eye to focus on narrowing down a smaller set of possibilities. If you'd like a more in-depth explanation, please pause the video. In simpler terms, the more predictable an opponent is, the less strain the eye has to endure. Valencina has also trained to use her eye to overpower her opponent's mid-clash, using the predictive powers of the eye to accelerate her fighting style. Rien is a bit of a nutcase when knowing about where he's still officially a member of the Index or not, but in all likelihood he still is. He uses a weapon that reshapes itself based on the will of the prescript. This is out of control of Rien, so it effectively makes the current weapon change based on RNG. He mainly switches between 9 different weapons, however some additional weapons can be produced, like a fork. His fighting style is similar to Roland's, however he lacks any of the ranged weaponry and any other weapons he has. He is very slow with his movements, however he is capable of a burst of speed when using his ultimate. Rien has a level of 85, making him stronger than Valencina. However, due to his sizzling wound taking up 5 offense and defense level, it drops him down to level 80, just 3 levels higher than Valencina. Not only that, but the mask makes Ren more vulnerable against attacks that burn. Thankfully, Ryoshi isn't around to make his wound open up and take more damage. He also has more health than Valencina. He takes less damage from any unopposed attacks thrown at him, adding to his resilience. He also takes less damage from Rupture, Tremor, and Sinking. His attacks against the Prescript's targets are stronger. When attacking a target with the Prescript's target, he is able to hold onto some ground when losing a crash and retaliating with a weaker attack. All of his attacks work to determine the enemy's morale, sinking, as well as increasing his focus in battle, making him easier to land critical strikes. Ren's version of Shin makes him get stronger the closer to death he is. Now as to his abilities. Ren as an index member fights based off of his prescript, making him quite unpredictable in the middle of a fight if his prescript keeps changing. His unlock and karma causes his strength and defense to go up or down. If he is unable to fulfill the prescript, he will gain karma. If his opponent has the prescript's target, it will make all of his attacks stronger. If Ren is able to build up enough will of the prescript, he becomes far more stronger. However, if he has enough karma, he loses this defense. As Ren gains more will of the prescript, his sanity in the battle will get much better, granting him a mental edge in battle. If his mask has fallen off, he will become more vulnerable to burn and bleed attacks, but he will become more resilient to unopposed attacks. It also immediately brings up his Shin. With his mask off, he might at times become more obsessive with the prescript, making him deal more damage to an enemy's morale. However, he will gain a lot of karma if he is unable to land his skills. He also has access to a really powerful skill, like Fury also hitting 9 times. As the battle drags on and he uses different skills to fight, he will get closer to being able to use his ultimate, which grants him insane speed unused and is unable to be dodged or blocked in any way. One can crash with this skill, and winning said crash is easier if Ren has enough karma. If Ren wins the crash, it will make his opponent weaker and more fragile for a bit. However, if he loses, he can still use the attack, though it will be fairly weakened. When his mask has fallen off, he is able to use a stronger version of this attack. Now, if you like watching this video thus far, please leave a like and subscribe. Doing so will help me greatly to approach a point where I can monetize my content and have more time to work on making more content like this. I plan on doing more videos like this in the future alongside similar content like the rest of my channel. Due to Ren's randomly switching weapon, Valencina's Eye of Recognition would overhit way faster than against any other opponent, as he would have to calculate all 9 possible weapons he could pull out. Valencina's fighting style does have a small edge against attacks that pierce or slash, however this edge doesn't apply to blunt attacks, so if Ren uses a blunt attack, he gains the edge. Due to the wound on Ren done by Ryoshi, he is more susceptible to Valencina's attacks, as they will deal more damage to him. This is a 1v1, they both gain access to more power, though through either Valencina's game target or Ren's prescript's target. Due to Valencina's always having a prescript target, all of Ren's attack will become unbreakable, meaning he will follow up with the attack even when he loses a crash. However, due to Valencina's eye, she will be able to dodge the follow-up attack. Also, because of Valencina's constant dodging, it will make accomplishing the prescript way harder, leading to Ren gaining a bunch of karma. There are about 3 scenarios as to how the fight could play out. The first situation, which would be the most boring one, is if the prescript didn't tell Ren to fight back, or if it told him to let her kill her, in which case the fight would be over within seconds with Valencina winning. But that's boring, so let's say the prescript does want to throw hands. Now the fight could lean both ways based on how long it takes. The fight would begin with Valencina having the edge as she starts off with most of her kit to her disposal, and her eye at the furthest stage from overheating. Meanwhile, Ren hasn't been able to charge up his prescript stack, or his procuration with Hermes to use his ultimate. The two would speak at each other while beginning to fight. Ren now how he must complete his prescript and kill Valencina. Valencina will retort, launching all of her fury towards Ren about being stuck in the House of Spiders, about being unable to leave and regain her honor. The two would clash blow for blow with their weapons. However, Valencina would have the edge as he seamlessly dodges all of Ren's attacks. Not only that, but Valencina's hits landing have led to Ren burning, slowly chipping away his health. Ren would always attempt to attack Valencina at any opportunity, missing but into her eye draining at a quick rate. Valencina would always take the opportunity to land a sneaky hit in as she finishes dodging. However, due to Rin's resilience, it wouldn't be as effective as having directly crash with him. However, as they clash, Rin has received another boost trip, increasing his strength and helping him keep his sanity up and focus on the fight. Valencina keeps dodging all of Rin's attacks, her eye fully drained but far from overheating. However, enough time has passed for Rin to charge up his procuration, Hermes. Rin prepares to use his ultimate, but as Valencina notices this, she remembers her past during the smoker. How she defeated all those pesky G-Corp bugs, how she defeated one of the great weapons of G-Corp's wing, and how she was heralded as a war hero. She can't fall down here. She needs to regain her honor with her familia. She focuses on the drive and activates her Shin. She focuses on all of Rin's moves, predicting that what weapon he will use and accelerating her weapon towards the future she desires. Valencina wins the clash and deals chunky damage to Rin. However, Rin maintains his composure and follows through with his fear also. Valencina dodges the first attacks, but Rin's insane burst of speed catches her mid-dodge and lands the rest of his attack. The attack finishes, Valencina begins feeling a bit down due to Rin's sinking, but this isn't enough to make her give up. Rin on the other hand has been being burned alive by all the fire burning him now. Not only that, but the small tremors he has been feeling has been making him lose some ground. All of this surmounts to his mask falling off, making the burning sensation of the fire more painful and draining. Rin is almost low enough, almost tired enough to be unable to block Valencina's signature move. They continue fighting, however the struggle begins to show up for Valencina. Rin, having lost his mask, has become more vicious, activating his Shin and gaining more strength. Even worse, she can feel the aching sensation of her eye on the verge of overhealing. If she doesn't finish this soon, she is finished. Her no post attack has become almost worthless, Rin has become too resilient to them. She needs to play defensive, let the burn tire him out enough so that she can finish this. Rin is close enough to getting his ultimate again. He should be tired enough now though. Valencina has used this move many times, winning her countless duels just as they begun. Valencina begins to rush around Rin, limiting his movements, until he finds himself nowhere to go or dodge towards. He gets to his blind spot, and rushes towards him, quickly swinging her blade around, leveling them Jin. As the slashing makes Rin lose his footing, Valencina points her rapier towards his heart, and fires all the bullets inside of it, extending the rapier in a flash, critically puncturing his heart as the rapier pierces through him. But in a mirror world, things went differently. As she aims her rapier towards his heart, she remembers all the shame of being in a house of spiders. Rin thinking that has have demoralized Valencina enough to get this straight to her single moment. Rin takes this window of opportunity and dodges to the side, making the disposal miss. As she misses her disposal, her eye overheats, leaving her completely vulnerable to Rin's attacks. Rin goes in for a couple more attacks, winning all the clashes against Valencina. She starts struggling to win due to no longer being able to accelerate her fighting style. Valencina is forced to take all the damage from Rin's attacks due to being unable to dodge. Eventually, Rin gets his ultimate again and uses it on her. This time it's stronger than before. Valencina tries to deflect it but fails to. Rin dashes all around the room, landing each of his different attacks at her. His stiletto, whip, spear, sword, broadsword, hatchet, rapier, hammer, and lance. Valencina is heavily injured and on the verge of death. Rin pulls out his final and favorite weapon, his scythe similar to a certain blue summon, and goes for the kill. He cuts the space around Valencina, cutting her in half, and gaining the victory. Thank you for watching the video all the way through the end. Now, I personally do think Valencina would win most of the time against Rin. However, as I have stated, they both can win. It kinda depends on how it plays out. Now, I hope I'll see you all on the next video. I'll be making more stuff similar to this in the future. It'll probably take me a few weeks to make another one. But I hope I'll see you once I do that. I hope you all have a great day.